Greetings, Rob Simpson with you. Simmer, Kraken Knuckleheads, as we cover the Vancouver Canucks, the Seattle Kraken, the Pacific Division, the Pacific North along the ocean, and the Western Conference. 12 games in the National Hockey League on this Thursday evening, and the biggest one is the Colorado Avalanche at the Winnipeg Jets. The Avs, a game below 500, trying to right the ship, and the Jets 12-1 on the season. Fresh out of the morning skate, we will be speaking with Paul Edmonds, the play-by-play voice of the Winnipeg Jets here momentarily. Just a wee bit of housekeeping. First of all, he mentions the starting goaltenders. Yes, it's Connor Hellebuyck, and yes, it is Alexander Georgiev, who at the time we recorded this just a short time ago, it looked like it was going to be Georgiev. Well, it is. So that's your goaltending matchup. And then Cale Makar, the former Norris Trophy winning defenseman, the star along the blue line for the Avs. He fell awkwardly in Tuesday night's victory over the Seattle Kraken in the second period. He's a game time decision in terms of whether he will play tonight. Speaking of the Kraken, they're in a 4-game losing streak. They're in a skid, and they host, it doesn't get any easier, the Vegas Golden Knights at Climate Pledge Arena on Friday night. The Canucks are in action this evening. They're rolling through California, at least they have so far, against the San Jose Sharks and the Anaheim Ducks. But the bigger challenge this evening as they visit the Los Angeles Kings. That's it for the housekeeping. Let's get to the talk about game day for the Colorado Avalanche and the Winnipeg Jets. Here's Paulie. All righty then, there he is, our old pal, Paul Edmonds, smiling, beaming, and why wouldn't he be? Hi, Paulie.
Hi, Simmer. How's it going?
Oh, it's going.
It's going. Yes.
We've got the Colorado Avalanche, who I'm sure, given the fact they're a game under 500, would love to take care of business against a team that's 11 games over 500. So coming out of the morning skates, what do we know?
Well, it's been interesting. There's going to be no changes for the Winnipeg Jets, and there's going to be some game time decisions, including Cale Makar for Colorado. But Jared Bednar kind of attacked this thing in the start for the Avs head on this morning with the questions that were asked. And he said, we're trying to find our way through this. And having to grind at the start of the year, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, isn't a bad thing for our team. Some early adversity, integrating some younger players into our system and into our schematics. So from that standpoint, a guy that, again, had his team beat the Winnipeg Jets last year in the first round of the playoffs. Were it not for maybe a goal here, a goal there, we're talking about them maybe getting to a game 7 against Dallas in the second round. Of course, Valeri Nichushkin ends up, having to go into the players' assistance program last year. And he had 7 goals against the Jets in the first round of the playoffs in 5 games. So they missed him. So this is a real nice collision that these two teams are on right now. And the Jets are looking, despite the fact that they're 12-1, Rob, they're looking at this as a test for them within their own division for sure, but also against a team that knocked them out of the playoffs last year and certainly is one of the upper echelon teams in the National Hockey League, even this year, despite the fact that they are 1 game under 500, as you mentioned.
And we know both starting goaltenders tonight?
Well, it will be Connor Hellebuyck for sure,
Yep.
and it's probably going to be Georgiev, but not for sure. Connor Hellebuyck will make another start. He is going to make his 3rd straight start. He'll look for his 4th straight win. So from that standpoint, this is the guy that's going to give you the best opportunity, as he has for the last many years for the Winnipeg Jets. Well, Colorado's carrying 3 goaltenders right now, so that's a little not strange in these times. We've seen it a few more times, not with popularity, but more often than not of late. So I think that we're going to probably end up seeing Georgiev before it's all said and done.
Gee, Paul, 44% on the power play.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was something that they wanted to work on this year. The specialty teams were an area of concern for the team last year. They were as good as it gets, a 5-on-5 over the Jets last season. But the falling down was on the power play and on the penalty kill. And they didn't come in and say, well, we wanted it to be running, that being the power play at 44% for us to be better and 12-1 on the season. What they did proclaim, though, was they needed to find a way in a tight game to score a timely power play goal to tilt the game in their favor. Well, they've certainly done much more than that, but it's been simple. And what they've done is they've got two real good units, and they've moved Nikolai Ehlers to the top unit. And then there's just been more rotation. There's been more movement. There's been more puck movement and man movement when it comes to the power play. So it's real hard to get set up into that firm box and then just kind of keep everything to the outside. I've called it the real estate power play. Rotation, rotation, rotation. So from that standpoint, it's been fun to watch. The players have bought into it. They're scoring a lot of goals with both units. And it's one of the reasons why the Jets have been propelled to where they are, because their 5-on-5 numbers have slipped a little bit from last year. It's still pretty good, but their specialty team numbers, especially the power play, are way off the charts.
Yeah. And almost 83% on the PK, which is very, very strong. Now, this doesn't just happen like that. There's been some gradual change over time. I'll go back to Blake Wheeler moving along a season plus ago. And let's just say, for lack of better terminology, too many leadership chefs in the broth can cause issues. He moves along. Coaching change. Scott Arniel, who was associate coach, takes over as head coach this year. I know they all loved Bones and all that good stuff, but Rick Bowness is out. So this isn't just a snap your fingers. This is kind of built over time, hasn't it, in terms of chemistry and confidence?
Yeah, indeed. And you talk about the head coach and Scott Arniel now, 13 years after he was the coach in Columbus. And he admits it didn't end very well for him, didn't go very well, frankly. Here he is taking over the reins in his new adopted hometown, because ever since he played here in the 80s, he's never left. So every time he had another associate coaching or assistant coaching job, he would always come back to Winnipeg as his home base. But his fingerprints have been all over this thing for the last 2+ years, because even under Rick Bowness as the associate coach, he was running a lot of his defensive and offensive schemes and plays that he wanted to see implemented. And Rick Bowness was more than happy to absorb that, because I think they all knew that at one point along the way that this was going to be Scott's team. He was the heir apparent to Rick Bowness whenever he decided that he was going to leave. So the transition has not been great, if at all, if you can measure it, from moving from Rick Bowness to Scott Arniel. Plus, over the last couple of seasons, through COVID and then some issues with his wife, Rick Bowness had to step away twice, and Scott Arniel stepped in and ran the bench. So everybody, with the exception of a couple of younger players or some guys that have moved up from the Moose, knew what Scott was all about. So the transition has not been great at all. And I think that there hasn't been a get to know you period at all. They just kind of hit the ground running from what they were doing last year in 52 wins, armed with the disappointment mentally of what happened in the playoffs, and really kind of just have gotten out of the gate the way they have this year under a new head coach in name only.
Yeah. 110 points last season. They get bumped, as you mentioned, 5 games to Colorado. Already on a pace. I mean, if you throw out the games in Prague between Buffalo and New Jersey, we're not even quite a month. We're almost exactly a month into the start of the season, and they're a quarter of the way to a playoff position. They're on a 96-point clip. That's not a quarter of the way through. That's a month of the way through, which is pretty amazing. Interesting. Also, you brought up Arniel's previous experience that didn't go well in Columbus, and that, now he's finding success. I think of Bruce Cassidy right off the top of my head when you say that, because there's maturization experience. Because Butch, people might forget, had a crack at it with the Washington Capitals, and it was kind of a sloppy mess. And he learned a lot and has since moved on to Boston and Vegas and won a Stanley Cup. That pops into my head. I'm wearing the Michigan shirt.
Yes.
Kyle Connor, I'm just going to say probably the most underrated, overlooked from a national, international, North American audience around the U.S. hockey fans, not realizing, holy smokes, just how good this player is. He played 1 year at Michigan, played in the USHL, and grew up in Shelby Township, which Michigan, you go from Detroit due north and towards the thumb. Might be this way. Everything's backwards, like when I did weather on the Zoom. Anyway, he's a Michigander. He's proud of it, and this is he. Would you agree that it's like holy crap?
Well, a couple of things. One, if you don't know who he is from an American perspective, you're
Yep.
going to get to know who he is because he's a lock to make the American side on the Four Nations Cup. He just
Yes.
is. Okay.
Glad you brought that up.
And he just against Utah the other night had a 12-game point scoring streak to start the season come to a conclusion when, with about 45 seconds left in the game to extend it, he hit the post, bang, dead center.
Dude.
But it's been a great run. He's had 9 goals, 10 assists, 19 points. He's the closest to getting to double digits in goals for the Winnipeg Jets. He's had 47. He, I think, is on pace for 50. And if you want to include going back historically with this franchise and then with the Jets in this city, the last 50-goal scorer was Keith Tkachuk in 1996, and he had 50 right on the button. So we're maybe seeing some history in the making here with Kyle Connor. But what makes him elite? Well, the skating. He is fast, he can dart, and he can dash, and he is very unpredictable when it comes to how he can maneuver with the puck. And there are very few like him. And then his shot is of an elite standard. I don't know that anybody shoots the puck like Kyle Connor. He takes nothing to get it away, and it's deadly accurate. I don't know that you'll ever see the stick blade raised above his knee to shoot the puck. He, as the words that I use when he does shoot, he either whips it or slings it. And I've never seen him take a slap shot, really, unless there's been an opportunity on a power play for one of those one-timers on that seam pass. But other than that, everything is around from the dots in on that little kind of horseshoe. And he is just incredibly good at getting the puck off his stick in a high velocity maneuver. And then without a whole lot of time of the puck resting on the tape on his blade. And there's that deceptiveness that he has to beat goalies that just can't get over to make the save and get over in time. So those are things. I mean, skating and shot ability. There's other things that go along with making the elite player that he is. He has to think the game, and he's a great passer as well. But he's really enjoying it here. And I wonder what the number is going to be for him because he's got this year and one more year left. And, the Jets want to hang on to him for sure. So I'll be watching with interest, I think, as everybody along the National Hockey League will be as well, to see what happens with Kyle Connor after next season.
Hey, I don't want to dwell on it right now, but you threw it out there, Four Nations. So Hellebuck, yes. Connor, yes, for US. Probably Morrissey, Canadians. Any
Yep.
other
Shifley.
Shifley. I was wondering about Shifley.
No Finns, no Swedes here. And then there has been some talk that Adam Lowry would be included in the Canadians as well. And boy, you've covered the game a long time, and hockey needs stars. You need your top six, your top six forwards, your couple of offensive defensemen, but you need those guys that can bring certain elements to the game and glue guys and gritty guys. And Adam Lowry is certainly that. And I wonder if Canada maybe takes a chance on having a guy like that on the third or fourth line as your center, because he's the captain of this team for a reason. He has the respect of the team. His line of Nino Niederreiter, Mason Appleton, and himself might be, if not one of, the best third line, checking line that can add some offense in the entire National Hockey League. There isn't an offensive line that Scott Arniel is afraid to put that line up against in a head-to-head matchup. So there might be some opportunity, and I've heard some rumors to that Adam Lowry could be included in the Canadian squad as well.
Right. He'd be a bubble guy for sure, though, just given the fact that, with Olympic teams in the past, it's, hey, fellas, swallow your pride, eat your ego, because you're used to being a first or second liner. We're going to keep you around and we're going to slip you. You're going to be playing third or fourth line situations, or we're just
He'd take it.
So, yeah, see how it rolls out. You mentioned the third line. Rasmus Kupari, Morgan Barron, and Alex Iafallo on the fourth line has been pretty damn good as well. So it's nice that Arniel has an opportunity to roll these.
This team is deep, and that was one thing that they wanted to address in the offseason, to get deeper with some defensemen, and Dylan Coughlin, who hasn't played yet, and Hayden Fleury, who has played sparingly. And then, of course, with some of the younger guys that kind of have moved up and pushed up into the lineup. And Rasmus Kupari being one of those. He was here last year, but didn't play a lot and got hurt and had a hard time getting back into the lineup. you can see the confidence grow with this group, those particular three players. And at some point, I think that you're going to see probably Morgan Barron move up the depth chart, and Alex Iafallo's on a contract year. This guy just works so hard. He's real good at winning puck battles. But it's a four-line mechanism for Scott Arniel. He does not shy away from defensive zone faceoffs with his fourth line, right? And if you instill that kind of confidence and have those guys go out to play 9 or 11 minutes a night, it's certainly going to take some wear and tear off of your big guns, so that when you get into April, May, and presumably June, there's not a whole lot of wear and tear on those guys, and they still have some tread left on the tires to kind of get things done. So, it's all by design. And I think that you can't be a 1 or 2 line hockey team anymore in the National Hockey League. You need 3 or 4, and the Winnipeg Jets just happen to have 4. And I think it speaks to the depth that they have this year.
You brought up the key word there, Paulie. It's confidence. It's a 95% right here when you get things rolling. And then collective confidence in a game situation for a team is momentum. And collective confidence on a macro scale for a team is a 12-1 record thus far. Any quick, I don't want to keep you all day. It's a game day. So any quickie comments before we on a Winnipeg Jets game day?
Well, it's always interesting to see what's happening with this team. And I talked with Scott Arniel today about the chess match that he sees. Different teams right now are devising different scenarios and plans to try to beat the Jets. And the Jets are always trying to work one step ahead of those to see what other teams are throwing at them. But for the most part, what's been impressive here with this 12-1 start is anything that's been thrown at them, they've been able to adjust and then, of course, turn it around in some cases to go off to 12 wins and 13 starts. We'll see if it continues tonight in probably one of their biggest tests of the year against Colorado.
And Arniel on home ice has last change. So it'll be Hellebuck against Georgiev, we do believe. All right, Paulie, rock and roll. Good stuff. Enjoy the ride.
I will. Hey, that's what we're doing here right now. Just ride the wave, because we've all broadcasted sports where the team that you're broadcasting for maybe hasn't done that well. So if you get on one of these, a little heater, enjoy it while it lasts.
Thank you, sir. You can find all sorts of cool stories and information at SeattleHockeyInsider.com and at VancouverHockeyInsider.com. Also, more videos like this one talking about all the Pacific Division teams and NHL in general at our YouTube channel, Simmer Puck. You don't have to have your own channel to subscribe, by the way. It doesn't cost you anything. Just click, yes, I'll subscribe to Simmer Puck, and then we'll pop up when we have all these interviews. We've got more broadcasters, some GMs, coaches, players, interesting people from around the world of hockey coming up in the not so distant future. You can also follow me on Twitter/X at SimmerPuck as well. Enjoy the hockey action tonight, and we'll see you next time on the very next Kraken Knuckleheads.